to EMCO. We are here for you, and we are just getting started, so it's really new, and things aren't entirely in place yet. Um, so we're calling this an early adopter phase because we're building it. This is what we're here to do. So my hope is that you are here for that to build with us, because it's exciting and not everything's in place yet, and we just need to give ourselves grace to get started, I think. Um, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Liss, and I'm co-chair of the PCC Identity Management Advisory Committee, who has been charged by the PCC to launch this new program called the Entity Management Cooperative, or EMCO. And so, excuse me, we all did a big onboarding session last month. If people missed the recordings, we can find those links and post them in the chat. But at this point, we are now launching communities of practice. So when we were thinking about how on earth do we launch this big initiative in which there are going to be several different registries being used, perhaps even we're creating or editing entities in them, we began to imagine this notion of communities of practice where communities would coalesce around different registries, and then they would learn together, build infrastructure like documentation, maybe best practices, maybe even some tools. That would be great. And then from that, we would start building a formal PCC MCO program. So that's why we're here today. This is the Wikidata community of practice. And we have several others sort of going on concurrently. We did ISNI yesterday. We're doing WorldCat, I think, Thursday. And then we're doing one tomorrow for like everything else. And so we'll have to identify what registries come up there and see if more registries are needed. But so that's the goal for this meeting, is just orienting you to the notion of sorry, I'm just gonna adjust the setting. Sorry. To just orient you to the community of practice. So a few more people joined. Once again, the agenda link is in the chat. There is a spot near the top of today's agenda to sign in, if you could. We'd just like to know who's here. So above that, you will see some resources, some links. This is meant to be a running notes for this group. The Zoom link will eventually just be replaced with whatever it is that you end up using. It won't always be that link. But in addition, there's a link to the PCC MCO drive, which you probably need access to. So we will be working on that, and there's a link somewhere down in the agenda about how to get yourself signed up for that. We'll get there. Other links include the PCC Code of Conduct, which governs all PCC meetings, our conduct on listservs and forums associated with the PCC, et cetera. So just so that you know that that's there. We also have a way to share feedback about MCO with the PCC IMAC committee. And that is that bit.ly link that's sitting there as well. And then for anyone who still needs to get on the MCO listserv, this is the MCO wide listserv, there is a form that we're trying to expedite those requests to our colleagues at the Library of Congress, who actually manages the listserv for us. And so people seem to be being added to that daily, if not every other day. And so that is happening just as we thought it would. So, sorry, let me just check chat real quick. Or maybe Crystal's monitoring chat. Okay, stop me if I need to address something. Thank you. Okay, so just so you know, those resources are there. All right, so we have a huge group here. We're not going to be able to do like go around robin introductions, but I'm hoping at the end we'll have a little bit of an opportunity to just, I don't know, share some projects or hopes and dreams that you want to, anything you want to share, really. But we will get there. Um, let's see. Yes, Jasmine had a question about a Google Drive for ECMO-Wikidata. Yes, there is. So since there's a question about that, maybe we should just oh, is it okay, so let's change that. Yes, thank you. Yep. This is a copy and paste error. Um, good eye, thank you. So yes, if you add yourself to that Wikidata COP roster, COP short for Community of Practice, sorry, more acronyms. We will get you added to the drive. Give us a minute though, because there's a lot of you to get added. Okay. So logistics for this meeting. Oh, it's recording, thank God. Thank you, Crystal. So the meeting is being recorded. I probably should have said that up front. Sorry, folks. And it will be posted. PCC folks are posting them fast. Like the ISNI one's already up today. So we hope to be able to share that with you after. And more importantly, we hope to share it with all the people who couldn't be here because, you know, there are two hemispheres and they have wildly different times. So we want to give all of the folks who signed up for to do Wikidata via ECMO the chance to hear this meeting as well. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about. I'm sorry, I really miss my dual monitors at work. Okay. Yes, okay, great. So moving on to some just basic expected deliverables, and we're truly planning this in almost 3-month chunks, right? So just immediately, the one thing we're going to need from each of the communities of practice is a registry coordinator. Because of the size of Wikidata as a community, we're probably going to recommend there be more than one. This is super helpful for just keeping up with everything, bouncing ideas off one another. In talking to the LD4 Wikidata community, they operate with a leadership team of about 3 to 5. And that seems to work well for them. So that might be something to consider for this group. So anyway, we'll need to know who the registry coordinators are. And I'll talk a little bit more about what's expected of them in a moment. And then we're going to also want to hear about I'm sorry, hold on. Oh no, I'm having network issues. I'm so sorry. Am I still here? Yeah. Okay. All right, good. I know I'm not sharing the agenda, Crystal. Okay, so here, great, sorry. So in the next 3 months, the community of practice is also going to have to, in order, once it identifies its leadership, set up things like communication. So yes, all of ECMO has a listserv, but it's possible, we expect, that the communities of practice will want to have some other layer of communication. It could be another listserv. And in fact, there is one. There's a PCC Wikidata pilot listserv, which maybe could be repurposed. That kind of depends on this community if they want to do that or not. Other options have been floated, like Slack or any of the usual communication tools. And so that would be something that the Wikidata community of practice would just have to decide. And then the registry coordinators would just make sure that that is facilitated, essentially. I'm getting really scary blips in my internet. Crystal, I'm so sorry. If I disappear, you'll have to take over. Okay, we're okay for now. So The community will also have to decide on what the cadence will be for their own meetings. IMAC probably, I mean, IMAC recommends maybe doing no less than monthly. But if you want to meet more, that's, I mean, it's up to your membership, right? Um, we will also eventually want to talk about what statistics each community of practice will keep. IMAC has no real requirements on this because each registry is different. And there's interest in using registries that you can't actually edit. And we thought that that was still a useful part of EMCO, and so we didn't want to exclude those people. So we couldn't just say, well, everybody has to report the number of entities they've edited, right? So we really quickly backed off and said, let the communities tell us what would be interesting to track, and then it'll be a conversation really between PCC and the communities of practice. So within the first 3 months, we would like to hear what the communities of practice think should be tracked. And the PCC will probably want to know some things in particular, but I'm really interested in hearing what you all come up with. One of the things I think about is what my institution might want to hear from me, because I would be an institutional member. So what data stories do you need to tell, and what's useful for you to track? So that could be something that impacts your decision about what statistics you're going to decide to keep. Where possible, especially with Wikidata, you can automate it. There are other entity or other registries where we're not sure that's going to be automatable, but we've seen some really good outcomes from the PCC Wikidata pilot, in which we got some really good statistics that were like pretty much no one had to manually keep hash marks on a piece of paper or something. So we hope it won't be burdensome. Okay, so beyond that, there's not much else we kind of expect in the first 3 months. Anything else is bonus. If you're able to start, assembling a page where you track all of the projects going on that concurrently by individuals, by groups, by institutions, that's great. If you're able to start doing an inventory of current documentation that's out there, amazing. But for 3 months, we really wanted to keep the bar low because we wanted to give people time to settle in. So a registry coordinator, I mean, we would like to know that by Friday, April, what did I say? 11th? Is that true? Yep, I have too many documents open. And then beyond that, we want to know that you've set up communication internally, you've done a meeting schedule, and then we want to hear some word back about statistics and how you plan to do that. I'm going to pause. That was a lot of talking and interruptions. I'm so sorry. The internet seems to have stabilized. Is there any questions about any of that?
I see a raised hand from Cornell.
Hi, I was just wondering, during our meeting last month about the EMCO project in general, there was some talk in the chat about what people might want to do with Wikidata, like working to improve the sex and gender property. And I'm not sure that that's something I necessarily would be interested in. I'm a lot more interested in getting identifiers from other national libraries into Wikidata so that we can reuse Wikidata items in our bib records. And so I was wondering if there's any plans to split up this massive Wikidata group into smaller groups based on, say, project. Thank you.
So that is up to the community. That's my answer. So IMAC, sorry if I didn't explain this well. IMAC intends to be a layer between like the PCC exec folks, the policy committee, and you all, the communities of practice. But the community practice are really kind of meant to run themselves. And so if you think that dividing yourselves up into sort of groups that are working on like projects or on certain initiatives. That sounds amazing. Sounds great. I mean, so that is definitely a possible way forward. I think that would be really interesting to see. Hopefully that makes it into the notes so we remember that was said. Thank you, Crystal.
Charles has a hand up.
Charles, yes, hello.
Yes, hi, Charles Riley from Yale University. I'm wondering, there are some Wikipedia projects or Wikimedia projects that have incubators associated with them for languages that don't yet have enough content to justify a fully fledged Wikipedia or Wikidata project. Are those in scope for working on this kind of project?
Wow. Why not? Right?
Cool.
I see no reason not to. I have no idea how to do that, but maybe if you don't already, have a contact or something, maybe somebody here does and we can figure out how to do it. That sounds incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, I have an app for that. I've started projects that are pretty small. So I think that things like that, Wikidata definitely has room for. So if you have at least one or two people who are interested in a project, you can make a wiki project out of it. It doesn't have to be, I don't know that there's a certain threshold of size that a project needs to have. So I think, and I don't think the PCC would be limiting, limiting that way. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So excited about that suggestion. All the suggestions. Thank you. Okay. So let me run through a little bit more about expectations, and then we can get into the fun stuff, which is discussing all of your ideas. Okay. So for all folks, I just want to say before we get into talking about registry coordinators and what they do. So for everyone, I had some questions come in about like, are there production expectations? No. In every other PCC program, there are actual, like you have to have a certain number of records or, that sort of expectation. None of that is with EMCO. It's certainly not during an early adopter phase when there's no infrastructure, there's no documentation, and we're just getting started. We're on the bleeding edge, right? So no, there's no keeping track of who's doing what or any of that. It's more trying to provide an on-ramp for people to get started if they're not already started. And if you have projects in play already, great. Let's just put that under the EMCO umbrella and see if there's things you can share with us about what you learned, or are there others in the community that could help you with your project or stuff like that. So as a member, whether you joined as an individual or an institution, and PS, the distinction between individual and institution was really, it doesn't really mean anything. It was just helpful for IMAC to know there's one person sort of representing the institution, but then there's behind the scenes a bigger group working on it. But there's nothing different about how you will experience EMCO, really. So anyway. Yes, so let's talk about the registry coordinators. So really, this person's just a facilitator. They're not in charge of all the work. They're not going to have to do a ton of stuff. It's really more about making sure that meetings are scheduled. It's making sure that minutes are taken from meetings and shared. Because of the global scope of this initiative, the meetings are going to have to be recorded. There's just no way around it. So making sure that those are recorded, posted, we will provide all that information for you eventually. But also, tracking action items if things come up from the community that need to be addressed by the PCC, then the registry coordinators will collect those and then sort of filter them up to IMAC, our group. Once we decide on statistics that make sense for your community, Wikidata, then we will be receiving those probably quarterly or something. And that is, again, not to check that you're doing work, but to be able to report at the end of this what difference any of it made. We want to tell a story about what we're doing, right? And that's one way to do it. It's not a, in fact, the statistics will be sort of anonymized. They'll be high level. The whole community did this, right? So anyway, and then I think facilitating communication within the community of practice. So making sure that there is maybe a dedicated listserv or that Slack channel or something, right, for the community to communicate. And then ensuring that the PCC code of conduct is adhered to. But really, it's mostly a little bit of administrative work and then just largely enjoying AMCO. So that's what we envision the coordinators to be doing. I don't know that IMAC even talked about, I'm looking at Crystal, but any other IMAC person who's here could also chime in, that we imagined the registry coordinators. There may be a point at which we want to convene coordinators across all the registries to kind of share information across. So there may be some of that, which could maybe excite you, I don't know. But initially it'll just be about trying to keep things moving. That's it. Anything to add, IMAC folks? I'll just pause a second.
We've got a committee for that. That's like the registry coordination layer.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So it's a fun, exciting opportunity to sort of coordinate Wikidata work with the work of the other registries, which will be fun. So like when ISNI is doing work and Wikidata has links to ISNI or Wikidata has links to VIA, and we want to do exciting projects that connect to those registries. Wikidata does a lot of those. That sort of committee provides a space for all of the registry coordinators to kind of get in touch about all of that work under the umbrella of MCO. Just kind of big, cool thing. And then also we wanted to limit the number of registry coordinators so that registry coordinators could be staggered and have terms. So that's another thing that this group needs to sort of decide, hopefully by the 11th, is how long these terms are. And then hopefully the first group of coordinators, there will be a few that are on for the whole term and a few that only sign up for maybe half or 2/3 of a term so that that staggering can take place. And there will be some folks who have already been coordinators for a little while to take on the next set of coordinators and sort of take them under their wing, like Jennifer did with me as my coaching. And then I see Anthony has a question. How are the coordinators divided up in the group by interest group or projects? That's up to you. We thought that we shouldn't be prescriptive about that because the registry communities know best how to do that. And if
They
I'm
also, they also wildly differ in size. So it's, the smaller groups are maybe 40 people, and it's much more manageable than say this group, which is significantly larger. Good question though. Have we addressed everything in the chat? I think we have. Okay. Oh, I keep looking at the wrong document. Okay. Any more questions about any of the sort of high level expectations? We are also, I should have mentioned this, we are also leaving how to select registry coordinators up to you, the community of practice. So if somebody, just wants to step forward and say, I volunteer, that's great. No final decisions really should be made until those who weren't able to be at this meeting can view the recording. And you'll see in the agenda for today that there's if you kind of, oh, what did I just do? Oh, I almost got lost here. Okay, if you scroll to the sort of bottom of today's agenda, there's a heading called, asynchronous comments on the recording and notes. And so that's the opportunity for those folks to sort of try to participate in this meeting, even though they couldn't be here live or synchronously. So get this out of the way. Chat is very active and I'm trying to keep up. Okay. That's an interesting suggestion, Karen. Okay. Let's put a pin in that. I'll come back to it. Are we through the main points we wanted to get through? I'm trying to go back to my other document. I think so. So there's not much structure, and that's on purpose. We kind of want these communities to sort of grow in whatever way they need to support the work that they're going to do. Emma correctly remembers that there was an interest form, and that we tried to gauge some interest in who coordinators and who might want to step up as a coordinator. We got a lot of interest from the Wikidata community in particular. There are probably at least 30 names. So some of you were interested, at least, or were. Maybe things have changed. That's okay. Could we share the list?
I
How do we
think
feel about that?
that's probably up to the people who indicated they were interested, and
Yeah.
also up to the community. Like, I know that Wikidata often does like elections where people can run for positions. The community could also say like, there's already maybe communities or coordination groups in place. Like if there's an LD4 coordination group already in place, maybe that group takes the first round, and sort of takes the first group coordinator round since they're already coordinating the LD4 group. Or maybe all of the names who indicated interest get put into a Google form and people vote. Like it's kind of up to this group whether that's what they want to do or not. I think that we ought to though ask before putting that list out. I'm not sure. If anyone has ideas, this is a good time to share.
If you were one of those people who said, I don't mind being asked, then if you are okay with us sharing, then let us know privately in chat or something, and we can do that. But okay, I think I have run through pretty much all of the nuts and bolts. I think the rest of the time we should just sort of give up to the group and let them discuss. I'm happy to help moderate, but we had two things on the agenda, and we can do either one. We can brainstorm. By we, I mean you, because we're not going to be at your meeting. So you all can brainstorm some agenda items to get onto your next meeting, whenever that's scheduled. Or maybe you all could just talk about some of the things that are happening in chat, sort of are more on the theme of how to organize yourselves. That sounds like a great topic too. We talk about how Wikidata is currently being used by this group. That would be of interest as well. So really, I'm going to pause and let folks maybe try to prompt what they want to chat about.
I'm kind of thinking that maybe we should start by figuring out how if we're gonna split this group, how we want to split it. And then we could go, and by splitting it, then choose the coordinators for each group, maybe. Just a thought.
Interesting.
I'm not sure whether each subgroup would get its own set of coordinators. So like if there were 3 separate Wikidata groups, there wouldn't be 3 coordinators from each of those groups. There needs to be 3 to 5 coordinators coordinating Wikidata generally. And then if there are subgroups, that's fine, but I think we need to manage expectations from the perspective of like IMAC and the PCC and how much we're able to do because adding coordinators is something that has logistics attached to it, and having groups is something that has a lot of logistics and overhead attached to it. So sort of splitting it duplicates work. So that's just something to be careful of. And yeah, I think we would need to ask IMAC and the PCC before saying, okay, well, Wikidata gets to have more than one group. Splitting up meetings seems fine.
There are a few conversations or mentions of the dashboard in already. I think one thing that would be important is to set up a campaign as quickly as possible so that when the smaller groups get started, we can both track the complete work, but also individual mini projects. And I just wondered, I noticed there's one for the Wikidata pilot. Is there any advice on, or somebody who would get that established? Just what name would you put on it, and as groups get started, how will they know which campaign to use?
I assume, based on what I know of the PCC Wikidata pilot, that we want one campaign for all of EMCO, and then I think there could be, is it projects under the campaign? I can't remember the exact terms for that, but
so what?
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm just not sure of the naming, and whether you want to change it to early adopt. The same thing. You don't want it to be too long. That's all.
Right. Good. We'll get back to you. I think that's something IMAC can quickly just decide, and we'll get back to you on. Yeah.
Benjamin asked a question about the LD4 Wikidata affinity group. And I don't know if anyone is here from that group and wants to answer Benjamin's question directly. You see Kyla.
Sure. Hi, yes, I'm here. We did talk about that at our last meeting, and I think generally wanted to keep it pretty freeform. We are open to being merged-ish into EMCO, or it's pretty flexible, I think was where we landed. But several of us were also interested in being coordinators for various lengths of time, because that group has some stability that might be helpful to bring as we launch EMCO here.
Not to mention a ton of experience to lend, which would be super useful. That's great to hear. I saw Benjamin's comment. My institution, for example, has projects which could be added to the community's campaign. That would be wonderful. You're probably not alone. I think a lot of people could maybe just slot what they're doing into this. That would be wonderful. Yeah. Okay, did I miss?
Somebody on the chat suggested have an election, like folks can submit their names and backgrounds to one person and then make a poll to decide. At this point, that sounds as good as anything else. Does anybody have any better ideas or suggest a polling? Who wants to coordinate that?
As the Wikidata person on iMac, I could coordinate something like that if that's what the community would like to do. Unless, Jennifer, you think that I shouldn't.
If the community is okay with it, with you doing it, I don't see a reason.
Unless someone else super wants to do it.
Yeah,
I could just set up a Google form or something.
yeah, totally.
Oh,
The question is, would you consider adding the Wikidata URIs to name authority records as part of the scope of this group? Sure. Yeah. We're really curious, not just what happens in these registries, but what are the connections between registries, and particularly with the other PCC program, NACO, which is primarily the Library of Congress name authority file. So yeah, I think that would be in scope. So how would you all like to, because it is a big group, how would you like to let Crystal know that you're interested? Is it just an email to her, a private chat? Keep in mind that we had to do this async for everyone else who couldn't be here. So we need to give those folks time to say, hey, I raised my hand and volunteer too.
how about I'll send out a poll to indicate interest.
Okay.
So that all of the responses with interest can be together. So I don't have to keep track of 1,000 emails. And then at an appointed time, I'll send out a poll with all of the people who volunteered. And there can be like an open vote. And then the results of the vote can come out. But this group needs to decide how many at a time and for how long.
Just in the interest of continuity, I think we should have 2 to 3 people that will be there the entire time for the length of the early adopters project. And then, maybe 2 to 3, or excuse me, 1 to 2 people that could do the short term, which would be what, half the amount of time we're doing this, 3 times, like, because this project is 18 months long.
Mm.
So we could split that into 6-month intervals. Is that what you guys had in mind?
We didn't want to be prescriptive. So if you think that that's the thing this community needs, then we're supportive. I like the idea of continuity, though. I'll just say that's my own personal opinion. That's not like an IMAC stance.
I agree.
I-
I think, oh, sorry. I think having the coordinators go for the entire 18 months might be simplest from a continuity perspective. Though certainly if someone needs to step off and someone else needs to step on, we could do that too.
I think that's a good idea. The 18 months and if someone needs to step down, then someone could step in.
What happens?
Because or is that too long for somebody to take on
I think I like the idea of
or divide it in
18
half?
months, but maybe check in at the halfway point, like
Mhm.
9 months in, to say, hey,
Right.
how's it going? Is anybody tired? Like, schedules change at work, that kind of stuff. So yeah, so everybody would be in for 18 months. I would say 3 to 4 people, 3 to 5 people. And then check in at 9 months to see how it's going, both personally and professionally organizing the group.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Liz made a comment saying it would be useful to have coordinators who can stay on past the 18 months once we move into the next phase. So it might be good to have people who start at 12 months in and can continue afterwards. Yeah, so maybe if we had some that took on a 2-year commitment and some that took on a year commitment and then rolled off at 1 year, so that we had some who started at 1 year.
That might also help with the previous comment. That's Non's sort of getting at the staggered terms to kind of help.
Because the early adopter phase is only the first phase. We also have the community goes on after that 18 months. And if everybody from the coordination crew leaves at the same time, that could be hard for the new coordinators if all the old coordinators have left. What do folks think about the idea that Liz has proposed here? Maybe three for 2-year terms and 2 for 1-year terms. And then when those 2 get replaced, there's 2-year terms again, and then everybody has a 2-year term, it staggers. Is 2 years too long?
Pretty standard. I don't know,
Yeah, it is.
I think
but it's
2
not,
years.
you know.
I think 2 years is a good term because it allows you to accomplish things. You know, it gives you the time to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. Where 1 year is kind of a quick thing to do.
Mhm.
So, but if people there, you could also offer like 1 year terms for people who may not be able to commit to a 2 year.
That also just matches what the PCC tends to do. PCC terms are actually 3 years, but we have staggered. And I like Liz's suggestion to also in the poll, or sorry, the interest form to have people indicate 1 or 2 years.
I like that.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. So did this group decide they want 3? Just see how that goes. It seems manageable.
Oh, how many? Oh yeah, how many coordinators?
You could always start with 3, and then if the workload's still too much, just add another. Doesn't have to be set in stone.
I have a question for about that. The three coordinators then would split up the work of the coordinators, right? Or they would share that workload, correct? It's how that would work.
Mhm.
Okay.
Does anyone have opinions about the number of coordinators that might be needed for this group? Do we know how many participants we have?
In Wikidata, it was, okay, 2 numbers sprang to mind. It's either 140 or 175. I don't know which one. In there, we'll say.
So that's about, it's over 50. About 50 Wikidata editors per coordinator if there's 3. Does that seem like a good number to others? That's a good question, Natalie, the ratio of participants to coordinators in other groups. So how many coordinators does ISNE have?
They haven't decided, and the interest, I think there was 45 of them. So they could probably just get by with 1 or 2. But they haven't decided. So I don't know yet. And we haven't talked to anybody else yet.
But that's the next biggest group,
Yep,
it's 45.
I think so. I don't think the OCLC group is that big.
How big is this group?
Over 150
Uh,
to 175. We need to finish filling out the roster.
Maybe 4 to bring the numbers down just a bit. Since most of we're talking like 2 for 2 years, 2 for 1 year, etc. And I think
Yeah, so just
I agree with that 4 would be easier to stagger.
sure would. Liz's point, it has something to it as well. Just do 5, and then if someone had to drop out, then that's not a tragedy.
Well, could do that.
Well, we have time to think about this, right? I think the important part is getting the that interest form out there, and then getting that voting mechanism set up.
The proposal I put in was for 5.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was for 5 because of my experience with the LD4 group. It's nice to have more coordinators. So maybe we can start with 5, and then if through the early adopter phase, we find that that's too many, we could put it down. Is that agreeable? Sounds like
Yes.
that. Okay.
Seeing some thumbs up. Okay. Thank you for helping with that, Crystal. Okay. That is the big pressing thing to get done. Everything else can take a little bit of time. So I think we've done mostly the hardest part. We have about 6 minutes. Is there anything else this community wants to chat about? Or do you want to do a quick sharing of cool projects or anything else? I don't know. It's your time, so we can also just end the meeting if you think that's what we should do too. Making sure I didn't miss anything in chat. If you're really hankering to actually do some Wikidata, there is an event coming up that I could cross promote. I'll just drop the link in the chat and say no more about it, but not associated with PCC, but might be of interest anyway. All right. Well, we could just wrap this up and get some minutes back in our lives. All right, next steps is I'm going to get this recording uploaded to a PCC YouTube channel where people can review it or view it for the first time. Again, we want people to maybe contribute ideas of their own to the running meeting notes. If you have anything to add to the meeting notes, you're welcome to do so now or after the meeting. That's totally fine. Anything else we should cover while everybody's here? Crystal?
Who's responsible for setting up the new meeting? The next meeting?
I think the new registry coordinators should. But that's my opinion. If y'all need help, we can try. We could try to help you, but otherwise, I think I told ISNI they have to set up their next meeting. So
So that poll, should it go out? Should I wait until everyone's had a chance to watch this recording and read the minutes and stuff, or should I just send it out right away?
oh yeah, no. So I'm sorry. I decided this while you were out of town. So I promised that we would wait a minimum of 10 days.
Okay.
To make like final decisions or anything. So let's give it a second for the recording to go out, people to catch up, add their comments to the notes, and then maybe right in the 11th hour, we do that voting so that people have had enough time to say, hey, I want to volunteer. They know how. So we need to make sure that the whatever link we're using for the I raise, I volunteers tribute or whatever for that gets into the notes, and maybe a message to the listserv is not a bad idea too.
Cool.
Yeah, it's hard being inclusive when the globe is so big so many times. So we wanted to schedule 2 of these and we just couldn't do it. Like it was too short notice, and sorry about that, folks. But okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to thank everybody for joining, and stay tuned. There'll be more info. Could we add hemispheres? We'll think about it. Yeah, for sure.
We have
Thanks.
everyone's hemispheres.
Oh, that we do. We do have that info. That's true. All right. Bye, everybody. Crystal, I can hang out for a few if you need.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm going to stop recording.